delay, everybody. A minor technical hitch, really, given the
the toilets are in the corner over there. I just needed to say that. I also need to say there's no fire alarm, so if you hear the fire alarm ring, run. But can you run out the front door and go to the back for me? But I just want to say, I've known Jeremy a number of years. He's been a trustee for this organisation, and he is who he is. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you for this beautiful and absolutely vital resource that we have in our community here at Brickworks. I'd like to welcome now Mohammed Akbar, who is the chair of Finsbury Park Mosque, one of the most prominent Islamic centres in the UK. He has a master's degree in charity management and represents the Muslim community in North London on the Islington Faiths Forum. I know that I've known Mohammed for a long time, heard him speak on many occasions. He has collaborated with Jeremy and members of other communities fighting racism and discrimination to support and protect his own community and the ones that coexist with it, and the mosque, where they've been the target of sometimes deadly threats. He is a most important member of our community, so welcome, Mohammed.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. Good afternoon. I know Jeremy for since 2000, around 24 years. So 24 years earlier, we were probably younger than now, and with probably black hair, not the gray hair we have, myself and Jeremy. And I would like to share with you 4 platforms which I had with Jeremy, and why we as a community here, as a local community, we should not just only vote for Jeremy, but also campaign for him. The first platform I would like to share with you is in 2003, when the Iraq war happened, and we have the Stop the War movement, campaigning to stop this war and expose the lies of the government at that time about the weapon of mass destruction and so on. And Jeremy was in the core of it. He was jumping from a protest to another protest, campaigning all over the country to stop the war and to expose these lies. And we proved right. Actually, after all these years, there was no weapon of mass destruction, and this war killed more than 2 million Iraqis and destroyed the whole of the country. So this is the first opportunity for me to deal with Jeremy, probably very close during these days. The second platform was in 2005, when we took over the Finsbury Park Mosque from Abu Hamza and his supporters. And I'm sure many of you remember these days and remember the tension we had in the community and these people who hijacked this mosque from the community. And I remember when I worked very closely with Jeremy, I'll try my best to speak loudly. And I remember we worked very closely with Jeremy to bring this mosque to the community, and not just only have it as a mosque, but as a community center. And I remember Jeremy mediating with different groups to calm the situation in the community and make sure that all hard work happened to bring back this mosque to the community, make it worth to all of the community. And as you can see now, this mosque is not just only mosque. As I said, it is a community center for everyone. And without the help of Jeremy and the support of Jeremy, we wouldn't be in the situation at the moment as it is. The third one is in 2017, when the terrorist attack happened here in Finsbury Park. And one of our beloved brother, Makram Ali, passed away and few injured. And I remember Jeremy, as soon as he heard about this attack, he came to a Muslim Welfare House and met with leaders of the community, especially the Muslim community, try to speak and liaise with our youngsters to calm the situation and calm the tension which took place at that time. And I remember him as well working with the police and with the council to make sure that there is no tensions and there is no issues between communities happened. And this is what happened exactly. And again, without his support and without his help during all these years since this attack until now, we wouldn't be in the same situation as we are at the moment. The first one and the last one I finish with by this, it's a very interesting one, and it is a personal one. One day we invited Jeremy to a speech in our mosque. To be honest, he spoke quite a lot in our mosque, so I don't remember which one it is at the moment. But he came to speak in our mosque and asked one of my colleagues who came recently from Lebanon to stand outside and welcome Jeremy when he arrived. And that guy never saw Jeremy before. So he waited probably more than half an hour, about 45 minutes waiting outside. And we were all inside and the event started. And then he came to me while we listening to someone, and he told me, look, he didn't come. You told me that he's coming, he's in his way, and until now he didn't come. I told him, he's speaking now. Jeremy is speaking now. He said, is he your local MP? He said, yes. He said he came on a bike with a helmet. And I didn't expect an MP to come in a bike to the mosque, because in our countries, as you know, in countries in the Middle East, the MP come with a car with the bodyguards and one car in front and one car in the back and so on. So he was shocked, and I can understand why he was shocked with this. And this shows how Jeremy is a humble person, meet with people. He's no different than any one of us. Meet with people in different places, speak to them, have fun with them, play with them, and support them. That's our local MP. That's what is Jeremy about in Islington. And I know that Jeremy meeting with different people, whether they are in schools or in colleges or hospitals, and the workers who have strike recently, and places of worship like our mosque and others. I think that kind of leadership we want in Islington. That kind of MPs we need is in Islington. And we wouldn't, and I say it clearly, we wouldn't find a better MP than Jeremy Corbyn, who care about people, who look after people. I know when he comes to the mosque, for example, and I'm sure wherever he goes, when people ask for help and for support, he wouldn't say no. He never said no to anyone who approached him for any support. And therefore, I think Jeremy is not just only the choice for individuals, the choice for workers, the choice of ordinary people, but he is the choice of the people. He is the choice of every people, whether they are from this community or from that community, because I know Jeremy, he never failed anyone, whether they are from our community or from the other community. Therefore, I urge everyone, and I'm sure that we all will stand with Jeremy and support him in his campaign, and hopefully after the 4th of July, we will have a new local MP, which is Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. who I know and I can see from the reaction in the audience speaks for so many of us. Jeremy cares for everybody and speaks to everybody and listens to everybody. And in that leafleting session that we had last Saturday, within 1 minute, he'd been stopped by somebody who had a massive problem to deal with. And he just stayed as long as she needed, though her dog, which was the size of a horse, was barking at the window, and we were all afraid and thought we'd rescue him from here. No, he was there for her, taking notes, and will act on the issues that she's got and help her. So Mohammed is one dimension of this man who really cares for everybody in the constituency. The next person I'm going to ask to speak is Jan Pollock, who is a lifelong trade unionist and campaigner. She's a member of the Older Feminist Network and a long-standing activist in Islington Keep Our NHS Public, which is a very central issue for Jeremy. She has not only campaigned for health services, she's also campaigned for the safety of railway passengers at a time when the rail companies were trying to make cutbacks to ticket offices and guards on trains. She's another person who cares for everybody in the community. So I'm going to hand over the mic to her and welcome her.
Okay, I remember being outside the mosque because there were so many people there, we couldn't all possibly get in. Oh, sorry. And shout. Right, I'm very loud. I'm just saying, I remember being outside the mosque and there were so many of us, there was no way we could all get in, but we just kept on coming. That's what I remember about that day. Groups of people from all over the place, all coming together and being happy with each other. But I'm here really to talk about the NHS. And I'm so thrilled that Jeremy is standing on a really clear line that we are going to fully get back our NHS and not just have all this privatized stuff going on, which seems to be well, I won't go on about who believes this stuff. I can't tell if it's Tory or Labour. No, I won't mention them. But we need our own NHS for the national big setup, not for private purposes and to make profits for people. I want to point out a small wee thing, but it mattered a lot for hundreds of us who are insulin users, who are diabetic, because I went up one day to see my diabetic specialist at the Whittington, and she said, "Oh, I won't be able to see you anymore. I have a letter of redundancy." This at a time when there are more and more and more diabetics. What is the sense in that? Well, of course, there is no sense. So as soon as I got home, I phoned Jeremy and she had 3 days left of her redundancy notice. But he wrote a letter and was up himself the next day at the hospital. And suddenly all the difficulties disappeared and hundreds of other diabetic patients like me were thrilled to be able to have Dr. Graham still with us and looking after us for many years later. But that's that's just one small wee story, and about one small wee group of people. But keeping us all alive and working and full of go is an important job, and Jeremy has helped that to happen. Done more than help for it to happen. You'll all remember the big demo in 2010, when we all, a giant, thousands of people were outside the Whittington, and we were able to stop them closing our A&E and our maternity unit. But just always be aware, there's always people wanting to make cuts in the NHS. But that's just one thing that Jeremy's done, or one area of campaigning. He's also been very good on, to put it mildly, on transport. And people who work at the Whittington need or go to visit the patients there, need the number 4 bus. And Jeremy helped us keep that just recently. But even more recently, because I don't want to be hysterical or historical and dwell on the past, this very year, we had to mount a campaign to stop ticket office closures. And I'm proud to be a member of the Islington Pensioners Forum. And we mounted a demonstration. Suddenly, the British Transport Police arrived. We were just handing out leaflets peacefully. The British Transport Police arrived and told us they would have us arrested. So several people phoned up and said, what are we going to do? What should we do? But somebody immediately phoned Jeremy. Within 10 minutes, he was outside the Finsbury Park station with us. And suddenly the British Transport Police all disappeared and turned and ran. And we worked with the RMT very closely on that. The local RMT were brilliant about that campaign. So were the pensioners. So were a lot of us, though, I think. And that's what's so exciting is I never know what I'm going to next get excited about. I never expected we'd win and we'd keep most of the ticket offices. They did close Euston before they even announced there was a consultation, the dirty devils. But we've managed to keep the rest, and that's thanks to the support of an MP who knows always whose side he's on. So please, like me, like all the rest of our platform, just remember and get going on leafleting, talking to everybody. That's the main thing. Talk to everybody locally, and let's get our wonderful MP elected yet again.
Thank you very much, Jan. Everybody do what Jan says. So our next speaker is Salim. Sosan is Kurdish from northern Iraq. She is director of the Kurdish and Middle Eastern Women's Organization and a campaigner on women's issues of life and death that are absolutely critical. And I know that both here and internationally, she has had Jeremy's support because Jeremy understands all of these issues. And he is always on the side of people who are don't have the power necessarily to speak for themselves and fight for themselves. And he will always support their advocates and support them, as we've heard so far. So I'm going to hand over to Sosan. Thank you very much for coming.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. And I'm really proud. I'm here to honor Jeremy Corbyn. Before I start my message, my speech, there is two messages I have to pass it. One from Islington Bangladeshi organization, Assad, and their colleague, and also one from Iraqi Federation, Dashti Jamal. They send all their support and kindness and respect to you. And they said, whatever cause, we are in his side and we would like to support. This is from two big organizations. It's not big, but as a voice, they are big organization in Islington. Yes, I'm Sausan. I'm the director of Kurdish Middle East Women Organization. I have a lot to say because 25 years I've been working within Kurdish and Middle Eastern Women Organization. I know a lot about his kindness, respect, support, and campaign in solidarity. All Mohammed mentioned, I was a part, especially the one, the coalition for peace in Iraq and against the American war. What my area is different because I'm left Iraq as a women activist, you know, and when I came here, I realized that women facing the same problem we facing in Iraq and North Iraq, in Kurdistan. Especially if I take back Jeremy to the day we met, it was that when the Sophia Nader was killed. Sophia Nader, she was a Kurdish and British citizen for 15 years. She was working in Caxton House as a case worker. She went back to Kurdistan and she was killed. When she was killed because of honor, there were a memorial at Caxton House, and I was new in this country. I went there to have a speech, you know, as activist. And I saw Jeremy, he had a speech there, and I was very impressed. This man understands Kurdish people. They understand what is going on within the community, understand the women issue. I was very impressed, and I had my speech, and the same day, people come to me and ask me to set up a women organization. Although for me, it was an easy job because I said, I know about politics, but not charity. And they told me, we help you, and I started. But when I started, I noticed he's a member of the trustee at Caxton House, and I had all his support from him since, which is 25 years, and always attending our event. When we actually myself, I was not just working for Kurdish women and Middle Eastern women and women from North Africa here. We always trying to be a voice for Kurdish women from other parts, especially Iraq, because there's lots of issue facing, like honor killing, like forced marriage, like female genital mutilation, and there is a humiliation against women's rights. And we always, we were campaigning to challenge the Kurdish government and to even the decision maker here to have to support us in solidarity with our campaign and our work. And he is the one who ran a number of meetings in House of Parliament to raise the issue within decision maker to challenge the Kurdish government or Iraqi government to stop brutality and humiliation against women in Iraq and in Kurdistan. And that's why whatever I said, it's not enough because he was always around, visiting our organization, supporting us from fundraising to our event, to our campaign, to our the work we're doing. And always we had him supporting our organization and the work we are doing. And thank you very much for all your support and your kindness. And I'm always, whatever happened, we go back to him to ask for support and help. And he was always in our side. And I think he is the one who deserves to be a new MP, and he is deserved to be always around. And I think Islington people need him, and we need him. I'm sure, I know many charity organizations in Islington. We work very hard together, and I know how much they respect him and how much they want him, and how much when we talk about if we have some issue, who to go, and ask for support. He is the one. The name coming up, it's Jeremy. And really, I appreciate it, support you, and I hope you continue, because people need you, especially Islington people. They need you. Thank you very much.
This was so heartfelt, and I know I've seen Jeremy on the campaign trail, and I know that he never seeks photo opportunities, but what he does when he supports campaigns is that he always really understands those campaigns and really supports them in a very profound way that recognizes the needs of the people. He's never there just for show. And you know, this is what we love about Jeremy, that he's a real advocate for people. Our last speaker is Rohima Malik. She's a junior doctor who grew up in Islington North. She's been an activist for a very long time. She looks very young. She is very young. And when she was even younger, in 2015, she introduced Jeremy at the Labour Party conference. At university, she was vice chair of Labour students. Sorry, mentioned the word. And she has been a BMA, British Medical Association national representative. And more recently, she's volunteered with Palestine Solidarity at the huge national demonstrations for a ceasefire in Gaza. So welcome, Rohi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here. Speak up, sorry. I'll try. My name is Rohima Malik, and I first moved into Islington North when I was 2 months old with my parents. Since then, it has always been home, even with the years away for university and work. There was no better place for me and my sisters to grow up, mixed race children who felt completely comfortable and accepted here. The multiculturalism of our area is just one of the many amazing things about it, as well as Arsenal, our lovely parks, or the Turkish restaurants on Holloway Road. But the best thing by far about our area is our MP. Growing up with Jeremy Corbyn as our MP gave us an example of what democracy, solidarity, and true representation should look like. Living in the community and voted for by the community, Jeremy has always represented the best interests of all of us. And he is able to do that because he is here, talking and more so listening to us. Some of my earliest memories are of Jeremy visiting our school, stopping for a chat whenever you saw him. I can't count the number of times I've walked down Holloway Road and seen him out and about talking to constituents, always on the way or to or from an important community event or meeting. I've always wondered how he manages to fit it all in the day, to be honest. This commitment to all of us, the importance with which he considers every single constituent, means he knows every single street in our area and what it needs. This is clear whenever you ask anyone about him and what he has done for them, especially the more vulnerable people in our area. So we've never had a second of doubt that he'll be doing his absolute best fighting for us and to make our lives better. As a doctor, I see every day the ever worsening effects 40 years of austerity have had on our once great NHS, both on patients who suffer increasing poverty and poorer health, and staff underpaid and working ever longer hours in under-resourced hospitals and GP practices. I want to continue to have an MP who will use every vote and chance he can to stop this from happening, who will always be there to stand up for our local hospital and has never and will never be bought by donations from private health companies. I always felt so lucky when I would see friends around the country desperately emailing their MPs to get them to vote on issues which mattered to them, such as opposing the bombing of other countries, or protecting the rights of refugees, or preventing the privatisation of our NHS, and know that I never had to worry. Jeremy would always vote with his principles for the benefit of the many of our society. The thought that we could have someone using our precious voice to tear down our public services even further, or to make the lives of the vulnerable even harder, doesn't bear thinking about. Beyond the local issues, you only have to look at his voting record to see that Jeremy has been on the right side of history on every issue in the last 40 years. While we all reel from the unimaginable suffering in Palestine we see every day on our mobile phones, feeling helpless that despite all our efforts, our government and opposition remain complicit in the horror, we can take some solace in the fact that our MP has spoken loudly for the Palestinian people his whole life. I always feel so proud that it is our MP who is always one of the main and most respected speakers at the huge national demonstrations we have been on, and this has been the case for every important issue in the last 40 years, not just Palestine. In a world where young people feel more and more hopeless about the future, socially, financially, environmentally, and our political leaders offer us no alternatives, Jeremy has always given us hope. He listens, understands, offers ideas for an alternative, and supports us when we stand up for change. I don't think there's been a single picket line he hasn't visited. Having his presence and relentless commitment to changing things for the better certainly inspired me, my sisters, and our peers as we grew up, and has impacted how we interact with the world for the better. Introducing Jeremy at Labour Party conference in 2015 will always be one of the proudest moments of my life, and I feel so lucky I was there to witness the hope and excitement he gave to millions of people. While others may try to make us forget that, we never will. I've been proud to put a cross next to his name at every election I've ever voted in, safe in the knowledge I was doing something good for our community and the world. And I'll be even prouder to vote for Jeremy Corbyn again on the 4th of July.
Thank you so much, Rohi, and all the other speakers. Mohammed reluctantly had to go, who are not a platform above the people in this room, because everybody in this room is a community activist, and everybody in this room recognizes what they're describing, that this is just a representation of everyday life in Islington, where we see Jeremy, we hear Jeremy, and we know that we have his support. So thank you to all of the speakers. And finally, we come to our tireless, resourceful, and very nice MP, who is an independent voice, who has advocated for us as an independent voice throughout his career. We know what a real difference he makes to the lives of people in Islington North, but not only in Islington North, beyond this constituency, nationally and also internationally. He builds relationships, and he's a real example to all of us. I don't need to add anything to that for this audience. So please now welcome Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you, Brickworks Community Centre, for hosting us tonight, and what a marvellous centre it is too. And thank you to all of you for the work you do in the community day in, day out. We could have filled this hall 4 or 5 times over, but we're limited on space and fire regulations. But I want to say to all those that have come, I know the work you do in the community. I know the sense of hope you give, and I know the sense of joy that brought to me to work with you as such inspirational people. I've got two important announcements to make today. The first one is that we have in Sarah Doyle, fantastic agent for our campaign, and in Jill Lawton, we have a fantastic co-conspirator with Sarah in getting our campaign ready and up and running. All in 6 days, we've managed to achieve leafleting almost the entire constituency. We've got canvassing sessions set up. We've got fundraising in place. In fact, everything that in the old days used to take 2 weeks has been done in a week. And that is thanks to them. Now, they and others have made many sacrifices to be here today. In their cases, it is simply this. It is their birthday today. So we've got something for you just coming through the door at the moment, as you see. So Jill, if you would come forward. If you and Sarah would be so kind as to blow out the candles on the cake. I'm not going to use the word extinguish because that sounds a bit ending. Can we just say happy birthday, Sarah and Jill, and thank you for all that you do. Oh, thank you. Birthday to you. Oh, thanks, Alison. Happy birthday, dear Sarah, Jill. You. I hope you two are suitably embarrassed. The second announcement I have to make is my name is Jeremy Corbyn, and I'm standing to be the independent MP for Islington North. And I want to be that MP, to be an independent voice for equality, for democracy, and for peace. An independent MP is a voice in Parliament alongside millions of others around the country who will stand up and speak up for you, for a political system that is no longer, sadly, offering the hope to so many people that it should. Politics should be about hope. Politics should be about making sure those that are silenced are heard, those that are pushed aside are brought back in, those whose needs are so often unmet. In short, it is about the hope we can bring to people. That's what politics ought to do. But I'm also standing for democracy. Democracy has been denied. Islington North Labour members were denied any vote to decide who their MP is or who their candidate is. And if you shut down the voice of people, that democratic voice, then you've got problems. And the problems are that people don't like it. They want their voice to be heard, and we are making sure our voice is heard. That's why, in response to many, many requests from many people, I've decided I will run and fight to be the independent MP for Islington North, but to work with, be part of, and always represent and be answerable to all the communities of our wonderful constituency. That is what I offer to the people of Islington North. And the arguments about democracy are as old as the hills and as relevant as anything else for our future. Even as I'm speaking now, there are thousands of people outside Hackney Town Hall in support of Diane Abbott. Obviously, I'm not there with her, but I've sent a message of support, because democracy within parties as well as within communities is a very important part of our lives. Democracy isn't just about how you vote every 4 or 5 years. It is about your right to speak, your right to know, your right to organize, your right to demonstrate, your right to dissent. It's not about shutting down dissent, silencing people who disagree. It's not about the endless stream of anti-libertarian bills that this government has introduced, and I want to be in the next parliament to try and reprieve us from the situation where our voices will forever be silenced. Those that came before us worked so hard to achieve democracy, and I'm proud to say that the Member of Parliament who presented the great charter, the great petition of the Chartists in the 1860s was Charles Duncombe, and that's why we have Duncombe Road and Duncombe School. He was the one that presented it. So let's hear it for Charles Duncombe, shall we? He did the right thing. And I will stand for the principles of social justice, human rights, and peace. And sometimes people say, well, you're completely alone in that place in Parliament. Yes, sometimes it can be a lonely place. I remember Tony Benn and I walking into the division lobby at the time of the Gulf War in 1990 and 1991. I said, Tony, it's a bit empty in here. He said, yes, old comrade, it is. But you know what? We've done exactly the right thing. There were 17 of us in that lobby. There were 540 in the other lobby. Who was right about the bombing of Iraq? Who was right about the health conditions that were meted out to the people of Iraq? Who was right about the other wars that would come after it? Sometimes you've got to take a stance and do what you believe to be right. And so there are the issues of Palestine, poverty and racism, and the principles that absolutely unite our community. But it's also about the kind of society we live in. There's never been greater inequality in my lifetime than there is now in modern Britain. More billionaires than ever, more food banks than ever. 3.5 million people relying on food banks just to get by. And the billionaires growing by the day, growing because of government contracts, growing because of tax avoidance and tax evasion, just growing. And we have a media that is supine in its laying down before the super rich and super wealthy and say they are successful. I see a billionaire and I see the wealth created for that billionaire by the poverty of the others who are queuing up at the food bank and elsewhere. So I will want to be that independent voice for workers struggling to get decent wages and conditions. And then you look at the way in which so many people have to try and survive. Where is the moral justification for saying that in a large family, child 3, child 4, child 5, child 6, however big the family is somehow or other less important than child 1 and child 2? It is immoral that we have 2-child cap on benefits. We must, and I will, continue to campaign to end that injustice and that scandal and that immorality that goes with it. And for those in our national media who always describe Islington as bijou, croissants, cappuccino, a lot of things describe us. Actually, there's nothing wrong with croissants. There's nothing wrong with cappuccino. I eat croissants and I drink cappuccino. Nothing wrong with it. It's fine. So if you want to have more, it's fine by me. Go right ahead. But then they present the whole borough as though we're all living comfortably and can spend most of our waking hours at pavement cafes enjoying cappuccino. Well, I have to say that this borough has the 4th highest rate of child poverty in the whole of the country, with 47.5% of our children growing up in relative poverty. That is the reality of people trying to get by and survive. And those with disabilities going through the indignity of work capability and PIP assessments, often getting sanctioned. And now there's an inquiry into the discrimination by the Department of Work and Pensions against people with disabilities and the sanctioning policy that goes on there. They are part of our society. People with disabilities are people who need support, need inclusion, and the opportunities as well. They don't need sanctions imposed on them by the DWP or anybody else. That is a voice that we have to always put forward. And I've been proud over the years to work with Disability Action in Islington and other groups on this. Now, I followed with interest what happened in Devon and Cornwall last week when there was a problem over water supply, and followed with interest the actions taken by South West Water on this. And I now hear there's a problem of parasites in the water of the Thames Water Company. Well, there may well be parasites in the Thames Water's provision of water, but I certainly know there are parasites on the board of the Thames Water Company. And if ever there was a case for public ownership, it's got to be of the vital public monopolies such as water. We all need water. We all rely on safe, clean water. It's vital, it's essential, obviously. Yet, we don't get it, it's very expensive, and Thames Water, taken into private ownership, promptly sold off large numbers of assets, paid out enormous amounts of money in dividends. The shareholders got more and more greedy, so the board then borrowed more and more money to pay dividends and cut down on what they invested in improving of our water supply system. Wasteful, inefficient, ineffective. Where is it right other than to bring it back into public ownership? Public ownership for clean water and environmental sustainability. And then I read this afternoon that another global billionaire has now decided they need to help out Royal Mail. So they're going to buy Royal Mail for £3.5 billion. Hang on a minute. This is the oldest public service anywhere in the world. Royal Mail have been delivering letters for 400 years. I stand with the postal workers, and I thank the Communication Workers Union for their support in this election campaign from the local branches of the union. Is it really on that a crucial public service like Royal Mail should become the plaything of billionaires to argue about the price of in order to rip it off, make the workers work harder, and provide us with worse and worse service? And the next thing they'll be asking for is an end to the public service obligation. That's what happens when you give up on democratic control of our public services. How much better if the water industry was run by a combination of local authorities, local communities, the workers that actually produce it, and the local businesses and environmental interests in an area. So much better than the greed of those that only know the bottom line of what they can take out of it, not what they can put into it. I will be that voice for public ownership of the key areas of public service in the next Parliament, and demand that that happens. I've been, as you all know, the MP for a long time, and I'm continually heartbroken meeting people doing advice bureaus of the housing stress that people are going through. Bringing up teenage children, 2 or 3 to a bedroom, some with special needs, no space to do homework, no space to socialize, no space to bring people home. Embarrassing to ask their friends to come by their house because it's so crowded. And those living in the private rented sector paying rents that are out of control and sky high. Young people worked hard at college, went to uni, ending up with a massive debt from going to uni, and then paying half or more of their take-home pay on rent. And we're still told that we cannot bring in rent controls in the private sector. Well, I tell you, we can, we should, and we will. When you look at the way in which council housing that's been sold off is rented out for more than double the rent it would be under the council, that's where the greed of the profiteers take over. So I want to say a big thank you to Islington Homes for All, to Acorn and all the others that are campaigning so effectively on this, bringing rights to people in the private rented sector. And then we have the cladding issue, And this again is a very interesting example of how public service reacts compared to others. After Grenfell, the horrors of Grenfell, when a working class community was burnt to death by the incompetence and greed of the private sector in putting that cladding on that block. There was then obviously a search for similar cladding anywhere around the country. Islington had one block where there was found to be unsafe cladding. To their credit, Islington Council within hours had got fire wardens on site. Within a couple of weeks had started work on removing the unsafe cladding, and all council properties were rendered safe. The same applied in many other parts of the country. Yet why is it that Galliard Homes on Drayton Park are still refusing to remove the cladding that has been declared to be unsafe? And the government says to me, Michael Gove and others say to me, they must be given more time in order to carry out their work. Why are they given time when others acted seriously, responsibly and properly in the public sector to achieve things? So it is about regulation of the private rented sector, but it's also about building more council housing. And when we built this wonderful community centre, it wasn't just a community centre we're building. I was there from the very beginning on the whole programme of building this. We also built over here 23 new council flats alongside it, good quality homes for people that need them. That's what we have to do. And I'm really thankful that Islington Council has managed to build, by the end of the term, 500 council homes across the borough. Well done them, because we need far more council housing, but we also need an end to the greed of the private sector, encouraging people into right to buy, which ends up pushing those homes into the private rented sector. Housing for all as a human right. That has to be the answer. Much has been said about the NHS this evening, and I thank Jan and others, and I thank Rowie for what she said and the work that she and all her colleagues do within our local hospitals. And my message to the private sector who have got their eyes on the NHS is simply this. 2019 election, I challenged Boris Johnson on the secret negotiations with the USA to bring in those healthcare companies. He told me it was a Russian plot. I'm still working that one out. I'm still trying to, if anybody's got an answer, drop me an email, let me know. I mean, it was complete nonsense. Where was I wrong when I said that they were trying to take over our GP practices when Centene took over a large number of them? And our local hospital is still fighting the consequences of the private finance initiative, which was the start to build new hospitals, but very unwise, because it was like building a hospital on a credit card. We are paying through the nose. 15% of all hospital expenditure across the country goes on PFIs. So I've seen the pernicious behavior of the private sector, private health sector, in lobbying powers, in advertising powers, and all that. I say to you two things. I will never take any donations from any private health organization. And a fully public national health service. And when the action takes place, if it does, towards the end of June, of the doctors having to go back out again on industrial action in order just to get decent pay and conditions. Highly skilled people who've studied for 7 years just to get to that position, and then even longer as working initially in hospitals. They're still described as junior doctors, which is a ludicrous title. I just say this, I'll be there with them, alongside them, outside the Whittington and other hospitals. But in addition to the National Health Service, we do need a National Care Service. Every one of us in this room, at some point in our lives, will either need social care, or will know somebody that will need social care, or we will see friends and neighbours that need it. And we will want that care to be properly delivered. I've got enormous faith and respect for those that work in the care service, those that work in the care homes, those that work on visiting people and giving them domiciliary care in their own home. But they're badly paid, their time they get is restricted, and so many families go deeply into debt just to pay for the care of often an older relative, sometimes those that are terminally ill. The pain and the stress that's put upon them, it is a big call, and it will be expensive to do. But to me, that Labour government post-war made the big call to set up the National Health Service, irrespective of the conditions of the time, when I'm sure they were advised not to do it. We need the same sense of boldness that would create a national care service where people get the care they need, free at the point of need, paid for by the taxation of the rest of us. That seems to me the fair, reasonable, and equitable way to deal with this, not push the problem onto the family, not usually push the problem onto women who end up losing jobs and career just to care for others. If we're a decent society, let's be one and have a care service. Two more things I want to say, because I realise I'm in danger of going on too long. I was warned about this beforehand, and I'm now getting a look, and I'm now being offered water. Is it clean? Is it good? Is it healthy? Thanks. You now say you don't know. We're in the midst of an environmental crisis and an environmental emergency, and I was proud to introduce the concept of a climate emergency to Parliament in May Day 2019, because we've got to understand the damage we're doing to the natural world, the loss of biodiversity, the global warming effect, and the way in which we lead our lives. And so there has to be changes. That's why it has to be a green industrial revolution, where you don't blame people working in environmentally polluting industries. What you do is protect their jobs and convert those industries into something that is sustainable. You don't do to manufacturing industry what Margaret Thatcher did to the coal industry. You do the opposite. You support people in order to transition to a sustainable green economy through the Green New Deal. And it's also a state of mind. I'm very proud of the parks we've got locally, the schools that do so much on gardening projects and environmental understanding. And I was in Newington Green School last year, and I asked Year 5 to tell me about global warming. They said, yes, Mr. Corbyn, sit down. So I did. And they'd already prepared a program to explain to me how global warming came about. Well, if Year 5 can get it, why can't Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson and Liz Truss and all the others get it? They got it, they understand it, and they're prepared to do something about it. So it's young people who've got the most to lose from climate breakdown. That is the issue we need to solve. That's the issue we need to mobilize people on, not gimmicks about a national service, not gimmicks about signing people up at the age of 18. Instead, motivate people, encourage people, bring them in order to achieve more. Let our society and young people explore music, poetry, and art, not searching for another war and an even bigger arms industry. Let's look to encourage the sense of understanding that real security is not the ability to kill your neighbor, it's the ability to get on with your neighbor. And so I unashamedly will always try and be a voice for peace, to try and find the diplomatic solution to conflict, to try and look at the causes of the conflict, be they wars in Congo, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Ukraine, West Papua, Yemen, Sudan, or wherever else, and also look at the motor force behind some of those conflicts, which is the overwhelming power of the arms industry to arm different groups and kill each other, as is happening now in the Sudan and the Congo. And so I want to be that voice. And when the media, as they do, attack refugees and migrants, they go on about the invasion, desperate people from France crossing the channel on small, dangerous boats that we wouldn't even use in the lake in Finsbury Park. And they could call them an enemy. I've been to Calais several times. I've taken food there. I've been there, talked to people, and spent a lot of time talking to them. Is intelligent, desperate people trying to survive. Victims of war, victims of human rights abuse, victims of environmental disaster, and being brutally attacked by far-right groups and very unpleasantly treated by the police. What we need is European agreement, safe routes for asylum seekers, and respect for them. They make a great contribution to our society. The asylum seekers of today The enemies of today, as the media will have us believe, are our doctors, our engineers, our lawyers, our bus drivers, and our neighbours of tomorrow. I'm very proud of the sense of inclusion within our community. The way this community in Islington has always stood up against racism of any sort. And so as we go into this election campaign, it's not going to be easy, but I just want you to think about many of you, I see faces here that have been involved in all these campaigns, all the campaigns we've been involved in. That magnificent campaign to prevent the closure of the Whittington Hospital. That campaign that helped to prevent the widening of the Archway Road and turning it into a motorway. That campaign of hope that prevented development on what is now Gillespie Park and making sure it is a park. The campaign that made sure the 4 bus route continued on. That campaign that got the electrification of the Barking to Gospel Oak ride, not its transfer into being a big road, which is what the government of the day wanted. And then you think back in history of very brave people in our society. Think of Newington Green, where the radical thinkers were all charged with treason because they dared to discuss the effects of the French Revolution on their lives and on our society. And Mary Wollstonecraft set up the first girls' school in that place and indeed started writing the treatise on the rights of women in reply to somebody else who wrote the rights of man. He was upbraided for that by her. And so it's in that tradition that I think of the, Tom Paine that is, of course, I just think in that great tradition of people that have done so much to improve the lives of others, stood up against racism, stood up for cultural and ethnic diversity, stood up for good quality public services, and stood alongside each other when they're fighting for decent pay. And so as we go into this campaign, great time. We're going to talk to everybody. We're going to see everybody. We're going to answer all the questions that are thrown at us at the doorstep. But above all, I want it to be a camp of hope, of the kind of world we can hope, people hope all generations. That means difficult questions, but above all, it means to stand with the victims, or be they in Iraq, Palestine, or wherever else, but do that in order to try to bring an end to those conflicts. So, my friends, never be afraid to hope. Never be embarrassed to be inspired by music, poetry, by science, by engineering. Think big and think what our young people deserve a world fit for them. And that is the message we will carry to every door this campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And thank you, everybody in this room. Before we go on, and before I say all my thank yous to everybody, I just wanted to very briefly invite Sarah Doyle, who is Jeremy's election agent, to just say a few words.
Okay, sorry, this is the dry bit. I won't take long, not very exciting. Election agent, and if you think that sounds a bit serious, you should try standing on this side of the role description, all 130 pages of it. I've read it. Over the last 6 days, I appear to have moved from a relatively easygoing, cheerful Corbyn supporter into a demonic pedant, reminding campaign staff and volunteers of their legal, financial, GDPR, and safeguarding responsibilities. On a lighter note, the candidate and agent are legally responsible for the smooth running of the entire 6-week campaign. Care. People who take their responsibilities and roles very seriously. A big thank you to the team. Not a single volunteer will start work without signing up to our code of conduct, our safeguarding policy, and receiving training. Not a single penny will be spent without planning and accountability. Not a single one of these leaflets here will be delivered after midnight tomorrow. Seriously, if you're holding one right now, take it home, share it, but do not be tempted to pop it through your neighbour's letterbox after midnight tomorrow. This is the last of 40,000 leaflets produced before the start of the short campaign. A big shout out to our printers, Absolute Print and Ronnie from Mailboxes. Follow the rules, all of them, and most of all, enjoy the most positive of campaigns.
Thank you, Sarah, for everything, all the sleepless nights, the pedantry, and everything that you're doing, keeping us all in line and safe. So all that remains really is for me to thank Jeremy, the speakers, everyone who's come to this event, and everyone who's been watching it online. I can't and won't name particular people, because the organisation of this campaign and of this event at the speed of light has been the most spectacular feat of collaboration and cooperation. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved and all of you who are going to join this campaign and put so much work, enthusiasm and creativity into the campaign to re-elect Jeremy. Now, we need to get him re-elected here in Islington North, and we've described what we've been doing so far, the canvassing, the leafleting. There will be phone banking, there'll be all kinds of things that people can do from home, on the streets, between friends. The most important thing that you can do is to tell people in Islington North that Jeremy is running as an independent. Make sure everybody understands that. Around the room, you'll see QR codes posted up here, inside and outside the room, and on the leaflets. Please scan them, and a message will appear that you can forward on. Forward it to 5 people, and if all of us do that tonight, we'll reach thousands of people in minutes. If you don't like QR codes, there's votecorbyn.com, an ordinary website that you can go onto and do the same thing. The message asks people to tell about our campaign and that they will be voting for Jeremy. And this saves us lots of time and money. So please scan the QR codes, go onto the website, message your friends and family in Islington North, and join this campaign. There's loads to do. We need to do it. We are just a microcosm of people across this constituency. And we know how much support that there is for Jeremy. We need to bring it in and make it work and get him re-elected. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for all that you're going to do over the next 6 weeks. We'll get this man re-elected.